Right, Lee. Congratulations on the film. It's quite something, it really.
Thank you very much.
But you've got terrifying demons in this. You've used 6,500 liters of fake blood.
Mm-hmm.
You've got stunts galore. How did you get children to audition for this? And how, coming out of this, are they not completely traumatized?
I know. I think I might have a massive therapy bill that I have to pay in the future. Um, like bringing kids into this world, like I think ultimately what I tried to do for them was to make sure that they had a good time. I needed them to perform in the context of this being a terrifying movie, of course. But especially for like little Nell, Nell Fisher, who plays Cassie, I brought her on the inside of the process of how you make a movie like this, so that she understood it and was not as scared by what was going on. But kids are really smart and super resilient as well, so they had a really good time making the film.
So you've got effects galore, you've got masses of blood,
Mm-hmm.
effects. What was the most problematic scene for you to shoot?
I think all of it. It was all technically very, very challenging, but there's obviously there's a monstrous conclusion to the film. And that was extremely, extremely hard to create. That took months of research and development and planning. And then there was no one fix when we created the monster in the movie. We needed a different technique for nearly every shot. So we used everything from old school puppetry with people literally with using fishing rods, to actually maneuver limbs, all the way to the most modern techniques like motion control to create various layers to be able to actually piece this monster together. But we also tried to make it as practical as possible. So like you can create something like this, with CGI very, very, not quickly or easily, but you can do that and have it do anything you want. But I wanted the monster to be as practical as I could possibly make it. So that gave, in the film, I think when people watch it, it will give them nightmares, but the making of it gave me nightmares.
So, Bruce Campbell, he's a running theme throughout all of them.
Yeah.
He's not in this,
Yeah.
but he is in this, isn't he?
He's buried in there.
So, do you want to give fans something to look out for this? Give them a clue to what's in
Yeah. Keep your ears open and you will hear a cameo from Bruce Campbell. But not only will you hear a cameo from Bruce Campbell, when you discover it and you know what it is, it could be Ash Williams. Because remember, in Evil Dead world, Ash has moved through time in different ways. So it's not just Bruce Campbell popping up. It's very likely that it could be Ash Williams buried deep in this story.
Okay. And then apart from Bruce, there are a number of Easter eggs in it.
Yes.
What are your favourite ones?
I think like my favorite ones are probably the ones that are very obvious. And so that shows why they're my favorites, because I wanted to put them front and center. So I do love the sequence with the eyeball because I loved that moment in Evil Dead 2. And that was one I really wanted to put my own spin on and present in the story. I think on the other end of the spectrum, one of the subtle ones that I really like is the chainsaw in the film is not red like other Evil Dead movies. It's a different color. It's the exact color match of the original Oldsmobile Delta. So there's some really, really buried ones like that. And the chainsaw in this movie is called Elise, which was the name of the props master that had to put up with all of these crazy choices that I wanted to make for the film. I also love the Henrietta's Pizza Box. That's one that I like because I love, again, Henrietta from Evil Dead 2. But the film is littered with these things, but never to stand in the way of the story that I was trying to tell, because that was the most important thing, was to tell this fresh story with these new characters and to terrify people. But it's fun getting to just knit some of these old school ideas into the new.
Now, because of the children, because of the blood, because this was originally intended for streaming, once it got the green light to go theatrical,
Yeah.
Did that give you free range then to ramp things up further or put in scenes which maybe you couldn't have put on streaming?
Well, actually, the movie was finished when we got the theatrical nod, so it was done and dusted. And part of why it went that way was because we did test screenings that kind of, for an R-rated horror movie in the US, kind of blew the roof off. But it's kind of been a funny journey because, in terms of how things get reported, that it was HBO Max and then it pivoted theatrical. But actually, it was always a theatrical movie that COVID then put pressure, on the studios to look differently, that actually slid it to the HBO Max release before it came back to theatrical. So there's really three parts to that story. Theatrical, potentially going to streaming. But we never even had a date for streaming. It was never locked down because they were still, focused on trying to get us to a theatrical place and working with great people at New Line Cinema. they're in the business of putting movies in cinemas. You know, that's their goal. And I was obviously very happy with how that worked out, because this is a big screen audience participation horror movie.
So Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Robert Taper, they're all behind this and they're fully supportive of you.
Yeah.
When you'd written your script, and they gave you free range, I understand, to write the script.
Yeah.
When you delivered it, did they have any kind of like, you can do this here, or let's introduce that there? Any suggestions they had?
Yeah, they did, of course, because like all good producers, they have opinions, and everybody that's involved in the background, the development of movies, we share opinions and thoughts, and I'm very open minded to that, and they're very experienced people, and they are the gatekeepers of the Evil Dead universe. So we actually had a lot of fun. We would do these all over Zoom. We'd do script read throughs, and we'd sometimes read different parts and play different characters. And just kind of have fun with it. But the original screenplay I wrote is probably about 90% of what's on screen. There's always little rewrites that go ahead, and I furiously rewrite all the time. And that's the thing, I'd be happy to pick up the phone to Sam or Rob and say, what do you think of this idea? Like, I was never in the background trying to be precious about it. I think collaboration is important, but they got what I was doing very quickly. So they started to just have a good time with the material. And it's a real joy to be reading through a script with Sam Raimi and reading out the description of a particular crazy horror moment, and he breaks down laughing. You realize that you're onto something special then, I think.
And then finally, without giving anything away, the way that this ends does suggest that this is clearly going to go on.
Yeah.
What can we look forward to in any sequel?
There's a few different angles, I think. I left 4 doorways open for myself. I won't give too much detail on them. One of them is all the way back in the past, because there's obviously history in this story that's presented via the vinyl recordings. There's an opportunity to go there. There's also an opportunity to follow the survivors of this story 10 minutes later. There's also obviously the wraparound and how the evil continues out at the cabin in the woods. And also this building. And I always think about, what about the poor cleanup crew that have to show up with the police and figure out what the hell happened here? So there are a few different doorways open for future installments.
And which one are you favouring? Which one are you leaning towards most?
I love my characters. So I really do like seeing what happens to those that survive. But I also kind of love the idea of going back in time. And this character, Father Littleton, who finishes recordings, he's the only unpossessed person in this seminary. So it's him versus 100 possessed priests. I think that would be quite fun.
That sounds great. Get writing.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Such an enjoyable film.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, dude.